Hello, I'm Betty Lou Lancaster from the League of Women Voters of Washington County. We're here today to talk to the candidates for the Arkansas State Legislature for representatives in District 92. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization. We never either support or oppose.
I love it when they call and they say, look, my sidewalk needs repairing, or this particular traffic light, particular problems. Whether it's a city, federal, or state issue, I will help them, and I love helping people. It's just something I've always done. I have it in my heart to do that. And I want to go back down there. I've developed wonderful friendships with my colleagues so far. They well respect me, and I love my constituency, the people that I serve down there, and I want to do it again. Ask for your vote.
Thank you. Mr. Richard, your closing statement. What do you hope to accomplish?
Well, sure. I first would like to finish off where I left my opening statement with some of the things I'm doing that I feel like has helped prepare me to be your state representative for District 92. I actually clerked for the Attorney General's office earlier this summer and actually had the opportunity to go to the Supreme Court and hear the gay foster parent case, and that was something that helped me see how statutes are interpreted by the courts, and I think that would definitely be helpful. I'm also an extern over at Judge Finch's office over in Bentonville, and that's also an opportunity for me to research case law and our statutory law, for me to see how it should be written to make sure we can kind of limit some of the backup in our court systems. If the laws are written correctly in our statutes, there'll be less time for judges to have to interpret it. If it's written correctly, then that's less to litigate about. And then as far as my opponent saying, you know, we want to be a voice of the people. We both want to be a voice of the people. Well, let's look at that a little bit. The people said from a 3-to-1 vote that we were against same-sex marriages. But if we look at House Bill 2751, I believe I got it off of Ms. Smith's website there, and it was an act to amend the Arkansas Civil Rights Act to include sexual orientation. And because of all the things that I've been doing, I actually had a chance to print it off by 4 o'clock this morning, because kind of prepared a little late for this. But let me read just something. After you include sexual orientation in that Civil Rights Act, something they will be allowed to do is the right to engage in credit and other contractual transactions without discrimination. Sounds like a backdoor way of a legislator saying, you know what, voters, even though you voted 3-to-1, I'm a lawyer, let's go ahead and enact legislation that would allow same-sex marriages anyway. If sexual orientation was added to our Civil Rights Amendment, not only is it a slap in the face of the voters who voted against such measures, it's also a slap in the face of African Americans who've actually battled a lot of these civil rights issues. I could dress up in any kind of clothing. I'm still going to be a black man. But as far as sexual orientation goes, unless you come out and voice it, no one's going to know what your orientation is. That's where the distinction comes in our Civil Rights Act. That's why the Supreme Court has not made them equal. It's just simply different. And that's not something that the voters wanted, and as being a voice of the people, that's not something we should go into legislation after the vote and try to run it through on the back door. Another deal is immigration. We didn't cover that today, but one of the bills that came up was the Driver's License Security and Modernization Act. That was something by one of our lieutenant governor candidates earlier in the primaries. He brought it up, and it was House Bill 2539, make it harder for an illegal immigrant or anyone to falsify a driver's license and make it harder to gain employment when you have this fake driver's license. That was voted 88-3. My opponent was one of the 3 people who voted against making it harder to get that driver's license. To repeal the state income tax surcharge after the 9/11 happened. It was a tragic event. We raised a 3% surcharge on top of the state income tax. After that, there was going to be a period where we would repeal that. The vote was 94-1 in the House. Look it up, Senate Bill 38. Go to the House website, 94-1. Ask your representatives who that one person was who wanted to keep the tax on top of a tax. We've been overcharged.
Well, since you brought up some new issues that we hadn't covered before, I think I'm going to give you each a little more time to rebut each other. Ms. Smith, I'll give you, say, 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, and then Mr. Richard can have another 2 minutes. But as long as we're bringing up new issues, I think each of you need an opportunity to rebut them.
I found it's the first two issues in terms of the immigrants plus his statement of my bill on sexual orientation in the Civil Rights Act, which would protect people from being fired from jobs solely because they are gay or lesbian. I'm very proud of those votes that I had. In fact, I'm for equality, and I'm against discrimination, and I will vote that way every time. And in fact, I spoke on the floor dealing with some of this profiling bills. I was down speaking on the floor against profiling, and we cannot do that. People know me and my family. We were strong supporters of civil rights, and I will always be there as a strong supporter of that. In terms of the surcharge vote, I had people who crossed the aisle. Jody Mahoney, who's been in the legislature in both houses for crossed the vote and shook my hand and said, "Good job." They were very proud of that. I hope that you read that surcharge bill. And people in the state Arkansas Times, I mean, people were saying, good for her. And it was a good vote. And it was a bill that actually would bring it down. And there were a lot of things questioned at that time in terms of the projections that were made, whether they were right or wrong. And actually in the bill's provision it said it will be eliminated once this is reached anyway. Oh, sorry.
We're out of time. Mr. Richard, I'll give you another minute and a half to rebut, but please don't bring up any new issues.
No more new issues. Well, I guess I'll have to knock on your door and tell you about some of these other issues, or you can check out my website. I'm sure you'll see both Lindsley and I knocking on your doors the next couple of weeks leading up to the election, and I want you to tell us whether or not that was a good job to add that tax on top of a tax after we have this huge surplus you see right now before us. 3% on top of a state income tax that our neighboring states aren't even having to pay. We were already coming back as a state. We should not have had that surcharge. It's not our money in Little Rock. It's not your money, Lindsley. We have to give that back to the people. It was a 3% surcharge, 94-1. 94 people didn't come across the aisle and say, good job. And as a citizen, I voted in 2004. I wouldn't have come back and said, good job, to have to pay an extra 3% after already paying state income tax. Not a good job.
Well, thank you both very much. I really appreciate your coming, and I know the voters will have a much better basis to base their votes on, and that everybody will go to the polls and cast an informed vote. Thank you very much.